Tonight's DJNTV show is sponsored by the following: DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, Max Photo Booth and DJ Booth Design, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, JMOZ Lighting, and Instant DJ Requests, along with the DJNTV Insiders at DJNTVtraining.com.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. It is the Virtual Expo. It is a wonderful night, and we've got a packed show tonight. If you have not seen the schedule coming up, I'd want to smack you, but I can't because it's virtual. So just look down in the comments. It's probably better that way because I don't want to get barred from Disney or something. But below down in the comments, make sure that you are checking out the speakers that are coming up. But we are going to talk about some wedding tips for the 2022 season.
Yeah, we're going to dive into a variety of different aspects of that tonight. But Dan, what I wanted to start us off with is really to kind of wrap our head around something that I've been hearing some DJs talk about a little bit, specifically when dealing with guests at weddings. And they've been going to weddings, and people, I've seen DJs complaining that, oh, these people haven't been to weddings in so long that they've forgotten how to do it, or they're being, whatever. It's like there's this animosity that I've been hearing from DJs when it's coming to guests and such at weddings. And I'm not sure if you've seen some of those out there, but there seems to be quite a few.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just I don't know if it's recent, because I just have a feeling like when everything shut down, we kind of forgot how guests were. I mean, that's really what it comes down to sometimes is, maybe they forgot some of the etiquette, but I think so did we.
I think there's a level of that. And one of the things I wanted to really kind of start tonight off with is talking about that in that crowd, we have a variety of different people in that wedding crowd. We've got some people who will go to 10 weddings this year. Like my son Brannan, he's at that age where all their friends are getting married or just about to get married. So he's going to be going to weddings because his college friends and church friends and all these people are getting married. And then you've got people in that crowd who are grandparents that maybe are only going to go to one wedding this year. And then there's going to be some people in that crowd that this might be the only wedding that they go to with their children. There's just so many different variables in that. And I think sometimes as entertainers who are doing weddings every weekend, we get, I don't want to, maybe jaded is a little bit, that we just start looking at it as I'm doing my job, I'm doing a good job, and you come up here, I'll be nice to you, but I'm doing my job. And I think sometimes when we get into that mindset, that can be doing a disservice to the guests, certainly some of the guests, I think, at our wedding events.
Absolutely. And just from the standpoint of, I think too often times we get this mentality, well, it worked for this wedding and it worked for that wedding. So we come to the third wedding and something doesn't work. Well, then that's on them.
It really is.
That's
and we worked it did there and it worked here, and then we get to this one and we may have a group that has never been to 90% of have never been to a wedding, and they don't. It's not their fault. They just don't know what to do. They don't know what when you mention there's a money dance coming up. They have no idea what it is. Yeah. And there's just so many variables out there, and I think that it's easy to overlook. One of the things when I'm talking to couples and specifically the money dance is we talk about that, and very few are doing it, and it's like, I get that, and I'm not a big fan of the money dance myself, but the only reason why I've ever encouraged it or mentioned that as a positive was the ability to dance with older relatives. You might have your grandfather there, and that grandpa may or may not be there. Things happen, and things happen quickly. I mean, one of our DJNTV writers, just had a heart attack last weekend. So I mean, these things happen, and it happens really quick. And you're talking to them, and in one day, then they're in the hospital. Thankfully, he's okay, and he'll be fine and such. But things happen quickly, so that chance to Grandpa's not always going to be there. Mom and Dad aren't always going to be there. So if you're not doing the dollar dance, maybe there should be a moment where you're intentionally going to go and dance with Dad, or dance with Mom, or dance with Grandpa, or whoever. If there's somebody that's really important in your life, this might be your one and only chance to do that. If you think that might be important, and it's going to be something you'll look back and say, I wish I would have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with your couples, the easiest way is to bring that type of situation up, and if they're saying, and I know how I personally feel about the money dance. For me, and the way it's done, at least locally, is too often times it becomes a very quick mood killer. I mean, that's you go around to this party, and all of a sudden now we have to stop, and if it goes really well, which is what the couples want, it goes 30 minutes.
Yeah,
and if it goes really poorly, then it's like we stopped for what? Yeah, exactly. But having a suggestion that's gold right there, actually, about the idea of just like, listen, just go over, grab Grandpa, grab Uncle Joe, who maybe is older, and pull him out for a couple seconds, and you'd be surprised how he's going to respond to that. And there's going to be the picture that's going to come. And it doesn't have to be a spotlight dance. It can just be a moment,
right.
That somebody grabs. And so even if somebody just grabs it with their cell phone camera, it's going to be something better that somebody's going to have should Uncle Joe not be with us next month.
Exactly. And there's other opportunities. So another area was a mother-son dance, and the mother-son, they were like, okay, we want to do something, but we really don't want to be out on the floor alone. Can we cut the song short, whatever? And it's like, well, here's a couple of options. One of which is that there were other mothers and sons in the crowd, and it's like, we could invite the other mothers and sons to join you. We could do this, that, and the other. And they decided, the mother's like, I really want to do that, because a lot of my friends the mothers were friends, and the boys were friends. So there was a connection there that both were there. We did that, and that was one of the times that afterwards, that one of the mothers came up, and she goes, I didn't get to dance with my son at his wedding, but I was able to finally dance with him at this wedding. And it got to me thinking afterwards. It's like, this might be the only time. If something horrible happens quickly, yes, but there may never be another opportunity, because he had been married for probably 5 or 6. I mean, he was in his mid-30s. So I'm assuming he had been married for a number of years. And it's like, there's moments like that we can, we have to realize that this wedding isn't one of 20 that these people are going to be at this summer. It's not one of 5 for most of them that they're going to be at. It could be truly a once in a lifetime, not just for the bride and groom, but for some of the guests. And we need to be able to try to facilitate those moments as much as possible.
Well, even if it is, one of the things that I often heard, and this was actually went back to like my summer camp days. You had this great week of summer camp, and everybody's all emotional because you're about ready to say goodbyes, and then the counselors really heap it on, and they basically go, this is the last time that all of us will be together. Mm-hmm. Because, the situation is not going to be the same. So even if you have a group that will go to 5-10 weddings that year, they're not going to be in that same scenario. They're not going to be in that same grouping of people. And let's assume for a second we do get the moms invited on this one. Chances are the moms are not getting invited to all 5, unless you happen to have that really close, tight group of, 5.
It's possible, still, but yeah, unlikely.
It's possible, but very unlikely. So the things that you present and the ideas that you present, you have to make it so that they're unique, so that, they might be going to 10 weddings this year, but yours is the only one that they remember because of some connection that they made because of some idea that you bring in.
For sure, and that's those ideas I think are critical, especially early on in the evening when you do have the mixed generations. You do have younger, older. Some of those people who don't hit the weddings. It's like the people who are there with me in the last hour typically are the ones who've been to 5 weddings already this year. Even if it's January 6th, they've been to 5 weddings. I don't know how but they have that. But making that night special for those people. I just, again, flashing back to, my own grandmother when she was at my cousin's wedding, and she was making a point to dance with every one of her grandchildren that night. It's a good thing because, she's no longer with us, and she was in fairly good health up right until the very end. And it's like the kids who got to dance with her and have that experience, they will remember that and treasure that. My youngest cousins, that were too young to even be at the wedding, they don't have that memory. So as entertainers, we have to look at that room and try to pick up where there's going to be, it's like, okay, I've got a granddaughter and I've got a grandpa, and I think this could be a moment, or it could be an opportunity to do something, and however we do it, whatever it happens, but not to, granddaughter comes up and says, can you play, whatever, an older country song. It's most likely not because she's a huge fan of it, but she probably knows that grandpa is, and maybe she can dance with grandpa. And I think sometimes we look at it as like, oh, this is going to kill my dance floor. I'm not going to do it. When the question could be, that's an interesting song. Can tell me why? Why would you request that song? Oh, grandpa, he would dance in a kitchen with me, and oh my God, it's going to get played now for sure. Because grandpa's right there and you're right here. But looking for those opportunities to make those moments, because as we all know, our good friend Jimmy passed away this past Friday. And the times we had together, whether it was in the chill room or wherever it was, we were able to take advantage of those moments with Jimmy and enjoy his company and his knowledge and his advice and his silliness. But those moments don't last forever. So it's really, really important to be aware of that and try to help as best we can.
Definitely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in Mr. Bill Herman here in just a moment. Bill, of course, you guys have seen him. He does his creative license on Monday mornings. He goes for a walk every day, and he takes you with him if you follow his Facebook profile. And Bill has been getting more involved with doing ceremonies, which a lot of us have added at some level, doing ceremonies. And Bill does higher end weddings where he's spending a lot more time being creative and planning and being part of their day that way. And the ceremony just becomes an extension of that. So I had asked Bill if he could join us, and he just got back. I think he was in the Dominican Republic last week. So
I saw, and keep in mind, this was not a vacation Dominican Republic. This was, if you do not follow him, he was working. He was working. Although, of course, his job and our job is not always working, but
no, we're always working. We're always working.
We're always working.
Always
That's
working.
true. That's true.
Yeah, Bill is just getting himself around here, and I expect him to click in just a second because he saw the post. There he is. So we'll bring him in. And then I'm going to reset the screen. By the way, tonight's show is sponsored by, if you look at that list below, we've got a lot of our sponsors listed there, so you guys can go down and show them some love because of their dedication to what we do. This show, which used to be behind paywalls last year and the year before, and the year before that, we've been doing them for a few years, now monthly are available. So, Bill, good evening.
It's me.
It is. I said you were knowledgeable, so give us knowledgeables.
No. 1 + 1 is 2.
No.
I got a math proof that tells you wrong.
Then I didn't say I was not told there would be math.
Oh, well.
I apologize. No one told me this would be in the final.
We're going to go plan B. So, Bill, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you approach ceremony planning when you're dealing with couples and such. Let's kind of give some people who are kind of wondering about getting into that, just maybe some pointers and ideas of things that you have experienced that could maybe help them to be more effective, maybe decide if they want to do it or not, those types of things.
Well, okay, be more specific. Are you talking about ceremony planning? Are you talking about from an officiant standpoint, from the planner standpoint?
Yeah, I'm really looking for the officiant side of it because you've been doing. I've seen you actually up there with your clipboard and looking really official.
I am official.
Yes,
that's exactly. Well, tip number one, John always touched on: have a clipboard. You can go anywhere; they won't stop you. They won't question you. Have a clipboard.
Is that how you got to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, exactly. How did you know? Once again, crystallizing my thoughts perfectly. That was my entire book right there. A whole page.
How I got into the Super
chapter
Bowl.
in my book. How to use a clipboard to move forward in your business. Okay, so I didn't do officiating for a long time, and I could have. I've been asked for years to officiate weddings, and when I finally agreed to it, it was because I had become closer to the client that I was working for as an MC than even I usually do. And they, at the last minute, decided that, or they lost their officiant and they asked me to do it. So, number one, when I take on officiating for a client, I want to be sure that there is a connection and a closeness with them. Because when it comes to the wedding, most people, all they wanted to do is say the words that you had to say down at the courthouse, they would go to the courthouse, right? So my first thing that I talk to people about, especially in Minnesota, and I don't know how many other states that this is legal in, but in Minnesota, the only thing that legally you have to do is to go down to the courthouse, stand in front of a clerk, not even a judge, take out the paperwork, and you sign it, and the clerk signs it, and two other people sign it, and you're married. And legally, you're good. So if you're going to, and I tell this to all of the people who want to do this with me, if you want to get, if you want me to do this, and you want to do this in front of a bunch of people, then it should be, we start with what exactly do you want to share with all of these people? Is it important to you that do you take this woman? Do you take this man? Is it important that they understand the symbolism of sharing rings? Is that the thing that matters and you would like to share that with them? There's all kinds of stories. There's all kinds of history. There's all kinds of ceremony for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years as to why these ceremonies are so important. We can go there if you want, but usually they want to share. They want these people in the room for a few minutes to feel the thing that made them want to be there in the first place. So I want to spend enough time talking to them about that. I want to try to draw that out of them. And if I've got a couple that's willing to open up to me about why this is so important, I mean, why would you bring a bunch of people together to actually see this? If not to show them something else. I mean, everyone has been to a wedding. There is a format that we can build around in a wedding. Everybody knows exactly what they're going to see. So you can give them what they're expecting and they can be bored. Or you can share with them something that matters to you. And sometimes it is, I mean, like when they talk about, well, what kind of readings do you think we should do? Well, first of all, readings are important if like religious readings are important if you're a religious person. Okay, regardless of the religion. I grew up Catholic, so I understand the readings. In a Catholic service, there is a sacrament there when it comes to Catholicism, but it's different when it comes to different religions. Some people want to have Corinthians read because they grew up and dreamed about having the words from Corinthians said at their wedding because it means something to them, but others don't. There are less and less people that it's important to. So if it's religious, then okay. So now we have another conversation. What is your religion? What are the things about religion that matter to you? How much of God are you bringing to this? If it's not religion, then the readings could be poetry.
Yes.
The readings could be. I've had song lyrics, right? Instead of readings, and we don't call them readings, but I've had them read love letters that they've shared with each other over the years.
Sure.
Right? Or a note in a card, or something their mother once told them about the day that the person that they were going to marry one day. Just remembrances, right? When it comes to the blessing of the rings, well, we're not really religious. I said, well, what is it about the blessing of the ridge that you like? Well, I like the idea that everyone feels that they are blessing our wedding. Okay, so, and you want to do that to the rings? Well, one of the things that I did at one of the weddings that I had was because these people being there, they were looking for the blessing, or rather, they wanted the people there to feel like they were blessing this union by being a part of it, okay? Finding a way to interact with it in a way that would be special. So the idea I came up with was we put these long poles on either corner of the back of the ceremony. On the poles there were ribbons that went all the way over everyone, and then there was a pole behind me where the ribbons came together, right? The two ribbons on both sides. We had the rings on there. When I asked for the rings, we talked about how we were going to bless the rings. And what we did was we pushed the rings on the ribbons over everyone's heads, and everyone that watched reached up and touched those rings as they passed by. And as they did that, the narrative was, you're touching these rings as they come by is sharing your energy, your love, your acceptance, your blessing on this day as you touch the rings and put your love and your energy into it. And they all just pushed these rings in with the ribbon all the way up to me. We took them down. Then we had a blessing of the rings, right?
Nice.
We had a candle lighting ceremony where it wasn't just we had two candles where the bride and groom came up and they grabbed the candles and they made one thing, which is lovely, right? I mean, that's a lovely ceremony. It's been around forever. But they wanted to be sure that they liked the idea that there wasn't just them coming together. It was the history of them being created and raised by their parents and their grandparents and all the people in their lives. So as I talked about the candle lighting, we had at the beginning of the ceremony passed out candles to every last person, and candles were lit at the back of the room, and then they passed that flame around the room, all the way through all the aisles, everyone lighting the candle as it came all the way up. Getting to the grandparents had two candles who lit the candles of the parents. The parents came up and lit the candles of the two candles for each side of the family, and then the kids came up and took those and came together. Okay, and we talked about how each of these people, and in the narrative, as the lights came up, the flame came up, the narrative was that all of these people meant something to these two people. They were a piece of their lives. They helped to meld them together, to bring them together, to mold them to who they were, to bring them to each other. And when they brought it all together, and I said, now before we move on, everyone holding your candles, bow your heads, think of a wish for these two lovely people, a wish that if it would come true for them, you'd like to give them. Hold it in your brain, take a breath, and on the count of three, we'll all blow out our candles to make that wish come true. 1, 2, 3. There was a palpable, beautiful, wonderful thing. And that was built out of them saying that they handpicked all of these people. These are people that are part of their lives. And if not for these people, they wouldn't have found each other.
Sure.
They were who they are, and they came together, and they were building something beyond all of these people because of these people. And it's because I take the time to spend getting to know them. Now, I can't do that. If you want to do officiating, the first you need to do is you need to learn the format. You need to understand the laws. You need to be sure that you get, if you're not legally able to do this, in Minnesota, I had to get ordained by the Universal Life Church. Most places you need to be ordained by some sort of a church. That's an internet thing. But there's lots of ways to do that, depending on the state, depending on the place. Some places you don't need to be that, right? You need to understand the legality of being attached to the state. I need to get a license with that. I need to go to the state, get a license to be able to do this, and then that license is forever. I knew I did it in Scott County. At first, I thought that you had to get licensed in every county that you were going to be doing this in, but in Minnesota, if you're licensed in one county, you'll be able to do this anywhere you want. But then I've also done this in South Dakota. And in South Dakota, I don't care. They don't really care. They just don't. It was so little I had to do to be able to do this in South Dakota. It was ridiculous. But you do need to understand. And then the biggest rule that I had to find out was the rules that were needed of you after you get done. what you need to sign, how you need to sign it, how the dates and things are supposed to be taken care of, and then when it needs to get to the state.
Yes.
You can't do this and expect someone else to take care of it. In Minnesota, I think you have less than 2 weeks to get that paperwork to the state, which means they sign it that night, you put it in an envelope before you go home, you stop at a mailbox on the way home, boom, right? You put it in right away. Because I don't want to be finding out later that I made a mistake and left it in my folder and forgot on the 15th day that I didn't send it. It is a big, for me, I see it as an awesome responsibility. And I think that anybody who does this shouldn't do it because it's a great way to make extra money. Because I do get paid to do it, and I charge double the amount of anybody else that does this, and that's their entire job. All they do is officiating. Mm-hmm. Most of these people that I've done it for, I charge double than if they went to a company that they're in the officiating business. Because I want to be sure they know that I'm the person they want, right? If they're just looking for a warm body, there's cheaper ways to do it.
Sure.
But I believe that if you're looking for a person who's going to stand there at the beginning, at the spark, this exact moment that you are going to begin your lives together, it should be words from someone that matter to you. That's what I think. Some people, it doesn't matter, okay? And if it doesn't matter that it's me, half the time when they ask me to do the officiating, I spend the first 10 minutes to an hour saying, don't you have an uncle that you like better than me? I mean, do you got to have a relative? They could also go sign up at the Universal Life Church tomorrow, right? And it's somebody that you see every day, somebody you grew up with, someone that feels something to you. And so I haven't done it very often, but the few that I've done, it's been very, very meaningful. And I come at it from, here's the original format. Now, let's talk about the original format, what you like about it, what you dislike about it. Then let's throw out the format. Now, what do you really want to say? Because in Minnesota, after you sign the paperwork, you can get married in Klingon. Doesn't matter. The craziest and fastest wedding I've ever been a part of, and I did not officiate this, we had it on New Year's Eve. And I know a lot of people have DJ'd New Year's Eve parties and weddings and things like that. But this wedding, the wedding itself was after the party. In other words, they had a big celebration and a big party, and they wanted to get married on the stroke of midnight. So I found a judge in town that was willing to come in at 11:59. And as we were doing our big countdown for New Year's Eve at 11:59, we threw a spotlight at the door, and there was the judge standing. As everybody screamed and cheered, I said, "We're about to do this. We're going to get married at the stroke of midnight." And everybody cheers, and the guy ran. We were at the in St. Paul. There's a place called the River Center. Mm-hmm. I think it's called something else, but they've got this huge circular marble dance floor with a huge dome and huge windows that overlook the Mississippi River. And I said, "Okay, Your Honor, go." And he ran. I mean, it's good 40 yards from the door to the dance floor. He just takes off on a dead sprint in his robes. He hits the dance floor. He hit his knees. He fell on his knees, and he slid out to the middle of the dance floor where the bride and groom were. He stood up, and he grabbed the mic as the music is going. He goes, "All right, we're going to do this. Are you ready?" They all went, "Yeah." So with 20 seconds to go, he goes, "All right, here we go. 20 seconds to go before midnight. Do you want him? Yes. Do you want her? Yes. By the power vested in me in the state of Minnesota. 3, 2, 1. You're married. Happy New Year." They all went nuts, and he ran away. It was freaking great. It was great. In other words, legally, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And then how can you create something that will be memorable not only to you, but something you want to share with these people that you made come out. You made them get dressed up. You made them buy a gift. Right?
Yeah.
And they come. So it can be, weddings are easy to be just the thing. And if you want to officiate weddings the way that go to the internet, type in wedding officiating. You get scripts upon scripts upon scripts. Yeah. Or it can be something that matters. And no matter what anybody tells you, if you're going to get married, the things that are going to be said, the things that are going to be shared matter. They matter.
They do.
So what does it matter to them? And then how can you, as the officiant, you need to express that. Because the reason they've hired you is because they don't know how to express what they're feeling inside. They just know they want to share this with them, and they're hoping that people will get it. Well, as a professional communicator, you should be able to, before it's all done, make sure that every soul in the room, from the parents to the grandparents to the bartender in the back waiting for people to start drinking, will feel why this matters to these two people. And if you can do that, then you will continue to want to do officiating. Otherwise, it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You do it as cheap as possible. You get there's those people that do officiating that'll do 6 to 7 to 9 in a day. They just schedule 34 minutes there, and then they'll have 20 minutes to drive and do 30 minutes there and 20 minutes to drive. And I know those guys. I've seen those guys, and those guys, they don't care.
Yeah,
they don't, and they're hoping that the people that are hiring them don't care either. So, again, I know you. Oftentimes, you have me on, John, to find out, So tell me about officiating, and there's an easier way to do this than the way I do it, okay? But I think something as special. The first time I did it, there was the feeling that came. The first time you stand in front of a couple, and you say, "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." And you're there, you're at that spark, that exact moment that they have been joined because of the words that you shared. There's something amazing about that, that you will never go away. And if you continue to do it the way I'm describing here, you get to feel that every single solitary time like it's brand new. And if you're not going to feel that, then you'll do this until you're bored. Right? Instead, I know I want to do this and the kind of work I'm doing until I'm a very old man, until I can't stand on my own, until I'm too old for anybody to care whether or not I have anything to say. And if I don't feel it, they're certainly not going to.
That's for sure.
So my perspective and my approach is not necessarily the way everybody wants to do it, because it's not systematically a way to make a lot of money at it. But it sure means something to me, and it's way more artistic. And from an artistic standpoint, from an actor standpoint, from an artist standpoint, this is how I come at it. Mm-hmm. But you don't need me to look it up on the internet and say, well, how do I become an officiant? What do I got to say? And what do I not going to say?
Yeah, they can find that stuff out there. I wanted to get your thoughts and your idea and your philosophy behind it. So then that's what we got. So thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate you coming on with us this evening.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and I'm glad you guys had a chance to talk too.
Yeah. So we are going to be bouncing here because we've got Cubby coming up next year. So thank you guys for being with us tonight. We will be back in about 2 minutes with Andy Powell coming to us from Iowa. Tonight's DJNTV show is sponsored by the following: DJ Event Planner, Electro Voice, Max Photo Booth and DJ Booth Design, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, JMOZ Lighting, and Instant DJ Requests, along with the DJNTV Insiders at DJNTVtraining.com. Take it away, Dan.
Well, thank everybody for coming back, and thank you again, Bill Herman, for sharing some words of wisdom with us about officiating. But I'll tell you, if you weren't able to read between the lines, you can use a lot of those great ideas, even for just asking your couples. If you're not going to officiate, you can still use those great tips for your weddings and your DJing and those moments when you're emceeing. So, on that note, though, we do have Mr. Cubby, who is with us, Mr. Andy Powell. Sir, hello.
Hey, good news, man. A lot of good stuff tonight.
Yeah.
Man. It's really, really good. A lot of great stuff.
And now we're going to up our game.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. So, Cubby, I want you to talk a little bit in your segment. We're going to kind of bounce around and really cover how you make a connection, things you do to connect with your couples a little bit the day of, to really kind of build ultimately that referral network that you do so wonderfully with. I mean, you've got people who know you and refer you and book you and do that, and it's not because you're the best looking DJ in Iowa, which we got to admit that's got to be close. But and it's not because you're the cheapest DJ. It's because I really think those connections that you have been able to do that. So let's kind of start at the beginning of the night when it comes to receptions.
And John, I like to say it almost starts at the planning meeting when I'm that resource. I want to be that resource that they can lean on and be knowledgeable about everything within my industry, not just DJing or playing the right music at the right time or doing the grand intro. It's about being a resource about everything about their wedding. And I consider myself more of a servant. I really try to make my brides my princess that day. That's what she dreamed about since she was a little girl. I'm going to make sure every one of her dreams come true that night. And that starts with when I show up on site, I set up, I check in with them. If they're doing photos, I'll offer to get her a drink or water so she's not parched, especially July or August. I'll offer the photographer, hey, look, it's hot out here. Do you want some water? I'll go get you some water. I always get there 2 hours early to make sure that I'm meeting with the staff and I'm meeting with the photographer and the client, make sure there's no changes. And like I said, just make sure they're taken care of. Get them drinks all afternoon. Prior to the ceremony, this sounds crazy, but I get mints. And I love to get those duo mints that are watermelon or strawberry, and I pass them out to everybody. I pass them out to grandmas. I pass them out to the moms. Oh my God, I needed one of those. Because I don't want them chewing gum going down the aisle, because they look like in Iowa, we have a lot of cows, and they look like, like they're chewing their cud. So I'll give them mints to where they can chew it and swallow it. Just as simple. Hey, Grandma, do you want a glass of water? While everybody's lined up for the ceremony, you're kind of waiting. They got done with pictures, and there's that lull time while guests are arriving. They're hidden back in the back, and Grandma's sitting there, and they're like, "Hey, Grandma, you want me to get you water?" Oh, that'd be so sweet. Whatever it takes. Mints helps with the flower girls and the ring bearers get down the aisle sometimes because those duos taste like candy. Strawberry, watermelon, and I always ask the parents to make sure that they're okay with it. But basically just taking care of the client from the time that I arrive until the end of the dance, end of the night.
Kevin, one thing that jumps to mind is remembering the names of the people. How do you strive to you call them by name, or you've been referring to Grandma here in a generic sense?
In a generic sense, in this conversation, yeah. I say Grandma, but it sounds ridiculous. Starting on Monday, I print out all my stuff and I make my playlist. My first dance, my father, all the stuff that I need that have to be played that evening. And then I start memorizing names. Father of the bride, mother of the groom, names that I have to pretty much say throughout the evening. I might not get down to the 8th or 9th wedding party member, but if that person is integral in the day, like a father-daughter dance, mother-son, grandma, and I'm recognizing them, I memorize their names. And then they go, the next week they're gone. I'm old and I got to get the next ones in there. And I really will, like literally all week. I'll be driving, or the day of the shower, I'm like Susie and John and Lexi and Christian this weekend. Lexi and Christian is my bride and groom this weekend. So I'll literally say it so it just rolls off the tongue. And then then the guests are like, "Are you like family member? How do you know them so well?" It's just a matter of not doing that Mick wedding or that cookie cutter wedding.
Sure. And yet there could be a lot of similarities between last week's wedding and this week's wedding, but you're going to personalize it even in a minimal amount of making sure you're calling them by name as opposed to, and now the bride and groom are going to come to the dance floor.
Right.
And then
just add the little superlatives of, they're excited. Like this weekend, I'm recognizing step parents. We're not doing specialty dancing with the parents, but after the mother, son, and the father, daughter, he wants me to recognize, it takes a village to raise a family, and Christian's very excited about his stepmother, and he just wants to recognize them right now. So I asked him, please stand and give him a big round of applause after the foremost for the mother and son. Just stuff like that they want you to do.
Do you typically, when you're going and doing weddings, are you working as a solo, or do you have an assistant with you, or how does that work when you're trying to serve the guests and do these different things, and you've got other DJ responsibilities for the day? Sure.
So I don't have an assistant. I am training somebody currently, so he is training with me. So I do have an assistant currently, but mostly in Iowa, it's single. I do it a single. Just do it a lot, and so I auto mix dinner. I know that probably makes some of the East Coast DJs little anxious, they spin during dinner, and you talk about some other DJ industry colleagues that I thoroughly love, but it just doesn't work in my market because I'm probably I'm dismissing tables at a time. I don't have a time to scratch in Dean Martin or Frank Sinatra into that stuff. So I'm auto mixing my dinner music because I'm probably out dismissing tables and making sure that the clients are taken care of. But when the music starts, it's all behind the deck and there's not a lot of movement.
Sure. I thought I saw something here that somebody had asked in the chat room. I think it was a Facebook one, and I'm not sure if that's a legitimate one, so we'll pass on that.
I can't see it. So
no, you won't be able to see it because I've got everything that comes through this way. So making those connections, of course, is a big part of your day. You're serving the guests. You've talked about that. Showing the personality a little bit to be able to make it so that people can relate with you as a person more than just a position. Kind of talk a little bit about some of the things you do to be not that stuck up, disembodied voice in a corner.
Oh, I love to talk to people, and as I dismiss tables, I don't do it over the microphone like table 1, table 4. I don't do that. I like to go to each and every table as I'm dismissing tables, talk to them. Are you Team Lexi? You Team Christian? How do you know them? Kind of getting some background information. Where you're from? Did you travel very far? What's a wedding like where you live? What kind of songs do you like to hear? And then when I get ready, when the table line's low enough and I get ready to invite them to dinner, I learned this a long time ago from a great guy by the name of Randy Bartlett, is everybody likes to be invited to dinner. They never want to be dismissed. Nobody ever wants to be dismissed. So I'll be like, well, ladies and gentlemen, you're now invited to dinner. Please enjoy your meal, and I'll see you on the dance floor a little later tonight. So that's about a lot of times that I do. And finding out songs, and I'll try to make a mental note of it. Oh my gosh, sometimes the bridegroom don't tell you everything.
Sure.
And you find out like you would talk like Dan and you guys were talking earlier. The grandpa really loves his song, Ring of Fire. I would normally off the cuff never play Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash, just arbitrarily. But to find out that it's grandpa's favorite song, you betcha to make that memory. I'll do it early before it's really rocking, playing that booty shaking music. You can't drop it between Usher, but I mean, I'll do a little. Well, maybe you can, John. You're really good. But I'll do it early before Grandpa leaves, and and the whole family involved. Like, oh, it's Grandpa's favorite song. So it's just finding out stuff about the bride and groom, and finding out what songs will get them on the dance floor while I'm dismissing tables.
Goodness, so you're carrying on a full conversation, really, with table to table.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll dismiss the bride and groom. And I'll explain my dinner, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's dinner style is a buffet style, and I will be the one dismissing your table. So if you please wait until your table's dismissed, I'd greatly appreciate it. I promise to get through everybody by 9:30 tonight. Chuckle. I've never missed a deadline, everybody. But I promise to get through everybody. If you please wait until table's dismissed, I'd greatly appreciate it. Christian, your next job is to take your wife to dinner. Head table, you're now dismissed, and I'll be around shortly to dismiss the remainder of the tables. So the head table goes, I'll quickly dismiss 2 tables, the 2 family tables, and then I'll go run and get the bride's plate. I literally carry the bride's plate at every wedding. And so the groom will follow, and I'll carry the bride's plate. I'll get her silverware. I'll set it down. I'm like, do you want something to drink? Dismissing those 2 or 3 tables buys me enough time to go grab them something to drink and take care of my clients. And everybody's watching me at that point in time. Oh my God, he's carrying the bride's plate. What's he do? I've never seen a DJ do that before. And then I get them drinks, and then I could go back to dismissing the rest of my tables.
Interesting. I guess I've never I've gotten drinks for the head table, but I've never helped carry plates before. That's an interesting idea.
in Iowa, we have a lot of barn venues and we do a lot of barbecues. So I don't want that red sauce to get on her dress, or I don't want her to have to, maybe she hasn't bustled, or maybe it's a little bit of a longer bustle. How many times have you seen a bride put her bustle over her dress? And, so I don't want her to have that mess, So I'll carry her plate. And once again, the visual of you carrying her plate in front of everybody in the entire facility is like, oh, that's like really cool. So little things that you do.
For sure.
So you're grabbing it from the head table as they're coming up to the line. You're carrying it with her, like you're basically escorting her through that line and then carrying it back as well.
I will meet her, Dan. I will meet her at the end. I'll let her plate her food,
Okay.
unless she needs help.
Right.
Once she's plated that food, I will carry that plate for her. It might be like a salad plate and a dinner plate, but I'll literally carry her plate from the end of the buffet all the way back through. And then also, it literally stops guests from stopping her because I put my arm out for her to grab my arm, and she'll latch on my arm, and I'll carry her plate, and it stops a guest from stopping her before she goes eat dinner.
That's a sneaky way to do it.
That's awesome.
That's a really, really good idea to help control the flow and make it work. Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know, just something I've been doing. It's simple things. I don't think I do anything crazy or outrageous. I just kind of do really want to take care of my bride and my couple.
Mm-hmm. So let's continue on now. Dinner, they're eating. What kind of things are you doing now? Because again, that connecting with the audience is obviously a big part of your business. So where's your next point of contact?
So once we get everybody through the buffet line, I'll make another general announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we got everybody through the buffet line. See, it was before 9:30. We are getting ready to do the toast in about 5 minutes. So if you want to make sure that your glasses are full so that you might be able to join us, now would be a great time to do so. Now I'm prepping my toast. Father of the bride, maid of honor, hold the microphone here, not down here. The louder you speak, want everybody hear it. Basically, just I set up kind of everything. Not overkill, just simple question, just simple lines, so that they, how many times have you been to reception? I don't really go to a lot of the receptions, but people go to receptions and their glass is empty and they're getting ready to toast. Like, crap, I wish I would have known this was coming on,
Yeah.
So just make a simple 5-minute announcement. I'll clean up the plates for the bride, make sure there's no dirty plates in front of there. I'll move the bouquet if it's right in front of her face for the photographer, so it doesn't block her face during the toast. I'll stage it. If the dad is speaking, I'll have the dad go behind that table so the photographer can get all three of them in one shot. So as dad's speaking, he's catching her reaction. Photographers love that. And I'll say, okay, Dad, you're going to pass it down to the maid of honor. And then, then you're going to pass it over here. And I literally script and stage everything so it goes smoothly. So everybody knows what's happening and it doesn't look like a big mess up. They're like, okay, who's speaking next? They've already been informed as to who's speaking next, and it'll flow perfectly.
How do you engage when you're doing that? I mean, not engages it, but when you have parents or someone that, okay, so dad's going to speak, but now all of a sudden the other father wants to speak, and it becomes more than you initially had planned. How do you work that in comfortably so you can have that flow?
Never happens, because it happens at the planning meeting.
Okay.
Who's all giving a toast?
You've really covered it. No surprises then.
No passing the microphone down the aisle. I'll tell them the horror stories that have happened when people don't have something prepared. Been on a party bus for an hour and a guy walks in there, they pass the microphone. I'm like horrified and I tell them, look, once they say it, I cannot bring it back. Once it's out there, I can't bring it back. This guy was lit. I mean, he was like, man, I feel God here tonight. I'm like, dude, can you feel anything? So I let him know that the only people who are getting the microphone are the ones that are speaking, because if you don't have something prepared, you're not going to get on the microphone and go, and possibly ruin their day.
Right.
I say something inappropriate. Am I bossy? I don't know. But it's literally covered in the planning meeting that who's speaking and at what time.
I like that. Can you feel anything?
Yeah, he couldn't. Dude, he was lit. He was so lit.
Okay, so let's kind of jump because we get about 5 minutes or somewhere in that ballpark left. Let's kind of get towards the dance part of it as you transition from the dinner to the dance and utilizing that opportunities to connect with the guests. What do you do there?
Well, sometimes we do training right now, and it's kind of crazy, scavenger hunts. And that's where my personality can really come out. And so instead of doing a dollar dance, I a lot of times do a selfie dance. And some of the, as we all know, traditions are kind of getting thrown. They don't bouquet toss anymore. They don't do garters. And they don't want to do the dollar dance. But we do a selfie dance. And I explain it that it's like a dollar dance, but instead of coming up and dancing with the bride and groom, you're going to come up and take a selfie with the bride and groom. And then they have that memory of a lifetime of your guest at reception. And we still make 2 lines, and people go down, they'll take a selfie with the bride and groom, and then it's just beautiful. It's a really cool thing. It's a great way to make memories. If anybody wants me to expound on that later, just Facebook me, message me, and I'll be more how to set it up and things. Scavenger hunt, it's a hoot. It's just I do a lot of corporate events. I use a man wearing lipstick, and they'll always put it on their lips. But I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, these guys are going to go out all out for Lexi and Christian this evening, because they could have just put the lipstick right here on their hand, but no, they went all the way out and put the lipstick on their lips. So you could tell you guys are all for Lexi and Christian, because you will do anything for them if they ask you. So when you're ready to move, call these 4 fellas, and it's Uncle John with lipstick.
Oh no!
Oh,
Here we were getting tips on how to get a moving crew. Oh no! Did we completely freeze up?
I think he did.
I don't know if it's on my end or his end here.
You and I'm still here with you.
Yeah, you're still here with me. I was just checking Restream here.
And we're still moving on the stream.
Okay, so
He's frozen.
Oh man, here I was wondering, because as I've got children who are getting, closer to moving, they're finding, movers who will do anything. I was ready to make notes. Ready to make notes. So sorry about that, gang. That's part of doing live shows and using the internet. Sometimes it goes well, and sometimes you have a little glitch here. So we'll give Cubby a couple of minutes to see if he can get back in here and bounce back in with us. Once again, tonight's show is sponsored by everyone. It's down in the description of this video. There's a lot of different businesses down there that you've seen them between their little spots and such. Those are the companies that are sponsoring DJNTV. And then we have our DJNTV insiders. We've got a group of people who feel so passionately about what we do and the education we're helping bring to the industry that they help support the channel, because this kind of stuff isn't as, first off, cheap as it used to be, and it's certainly not as profitable as it once was. So it's a lot of volunteer efforts and a lot of people coming together to make these things happen tonight. So his internet went out, and I'm not sure if that's if he'll be able to make it back here. And
well, the one thing he did say, if first off, if you like the golden nuggets that he was throwing out, and I'm telling you, I started jotting notes right and left, and hopefully you guys are doing the same. And if not, you just watch on replay and then you get them. But he did say, feel free to reach out to him in case you did not pick up on the fact that the guy seems like he's nicer than Mr. Rogers. He has a sincere heart for helping people, not just as couples, but obviously us, if he's willing to let you reach out. So if you have questions about either of the ones he was talking about there towards the end, definitely take advantage of reaching out to Cubby.
Yeah, and we if you want to go search, go to youtube.com/discjockeynews, and if you do a search for Andy Powell, a lot of the interaction things he was kind of alluding to, we did a show or two where he and I basically went through and we're throwing semi-rapid fire some of our interactive skits and activities that both of us, I don't do them as much as I used to, just haven't had that type of a wedding crowd, but it's part of what Cubby does, and maybe that's also part of why he is that referral thing we talked about is why that's such a big part of what he has going for him. But yeah, he's out of just south of Des Moines, Iowa, for those of you wondering where he is out of. So he's going to I think he's going to try to do it. I think he was going to see if he could jump in via phone. Oh, he doesn't. He doesn't have. Yeah, the internet is completely down.
That's what happens when you live in Des Moines, Iowa, apparently. So yeah, that we'll have to pick up the interactive side. We probably need to have him come in and go more in depth, because some of his
some of his things. He and I talk like on a weekly basis, but we don't talk shop that much. It's basically more personal of kids and family and pizza and bunk beds. Oh, hey, he might be back, and we'll go right up to the top of the hour here if that works out. And then we'll be jumping to Jay at that time if Cubby has enough internet to make that work. We will see if that will. He's in the staging area, I think is the best way to describe that. So we see you. We hear you. Yes. Okay. So Cubby, take us from as you're getting into the dance sequence. We're gonna go right up to the top of the hour here. So we got about 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Still making those connections and really showing opportunities to show your personality, I think is something that we really are starting to see come through.
Yeah, so through the dance, like we have a lot of kids there. I try to do like a candy toss for the kids before if we're not doing a bouquet or garter. Always another memory maker that people are like, oh my gosh, candy for the kids, that's awesome. I play I Want Candy by Aaron Carter. The anniversary dance, I stop and get flowers for the longest married couple. We'll talk about it. Is it going to be a grandma and grandpa? Do you know who it's going to be? We'll have the bride and groom present them flowers, and it's we have a local florist. I can get a $15 to $20 bouquet. It's really nice springtime bouquet, and then if they're okay with it, we'll swap partners and finish out the song. And I don't rush it. I'm not like a 1, 5, 10, 15, 20. I do a 2-song set because we're there to celebrate marriage. And, after when we get to 25 years, I'm like, everybody on the dance floor married for 24 years or longer. Let's give them all a big round of applause. What great examples Lexi and Christian had tonight. Stuff like that to just make it a little bit more memorable than like I said, just doing that Mick wedding or that cookie cutter wedding.
Sure.
Sorry about my internet breaking. I don't know what happened.
No, those things happen. It's not our first time. Yeah, we had it happen once before.
Crazy.
So with when you get into the dances, the dance time and such, and you've got these different activities, is this something that you have a list of different activities and different things that you're talking to the bride and groom and developing things to fit them, or how do you decide what you're going to be doing?
Planning meeting. Everything's in the planning meeting. And what we do, the different things that we have that we offer that's in our tool belt that we can share with them. And then whatever they decide to do, we will execute it that night. I never go off script. I never go off script and just do something to think it's going to be funny or well.
Do you ever find, because I've seen some talk about the idea of the lists and different ideas. Do you ever feel like it gets overwhelmed when you have because with the multitude of ideas that you've just even spouted out a little bit here, you have a lot in your toolbox. So do you help narrow it down for them before you present it to them, or do you kind of give them the full list and say, hey, what do you like out of this?
Kind of explain each and every one of them and find out what their personality is like, Dan, and go, does this fit your family better, or does this fit your friend group, and how do you think this is going to look? And just kind of like stuff that we do and see if they want to do it, and just go, this is what we can do. And like, well, I've never seen that done before. Awesome, let's do it, because we want to make your wedding different than all the others.
And how much changing up of some of those activities can you do? Like if you're doing the scavenger activity as an example, do you try to modify it a little bit for your audience, or is it something that you just have developed a repertoire with how that flows and it works?
Depending on the crowd, 10 to 12 people, or if more people come up, they'll start pulling 2 chairs at a time or 3, depending on how many people want to participate. A lot of them are game time decisions. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, but how am I going to execute it is generally sometimes a game time decision.
Sure. Excellent. So memorable towards the end of the night. How is Cubby?
I do the circle of love, and I ask them, do you want to do a Piano Man, or do you want to do a Friends in Low Places? Being in the Midwest, we get a lot of Friends in Low Places, and I'll look around and be like, Lexi and Christian, I can tell you guys got a lot of Friends in Low Places. Big circle, I'll wait till the first chorus. Second chorus, I invite the bride and groom in there. Third chorus, I invite the parents. So it's the bride and groom for a little bit till the whole chorus all the way through, and then the moms and dads in there. And again, just makes it special.
Sure. And then once it's all done, you just stand up there and
honestly, you want to know when it's all done?
Business
it's like
cards.
Go Cubs Go.
Go Cubs Go.
But they know when they get me. They know when they get me. The last song of the night. Some guys last whole nights. New York, play Frank Sinatra. Some guys, I just think closing time is too cheesy. You know, I don't do the semisonic. Probably some people think the Cubs is too cheesy. But from where I came from as a former Cubs mascot, and they know what they're getting, it's Go Cubs Go.
Yeah, it's good to be that. That's funny.
And they sing it here in Iowa. Couldn't tell you if they do it in Minnesota or not, but they go crazy.
Yeah, no, not so much up here. You know, we're going to win, Twins. We're going to score. 8:00. Hey, Cubby, we're going to we got to bounce here, my friend. Thank you much for being on.
We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking while you were not there. It's like there's going to be questions on some of the different activities, and we need to probably update our chat when we did our interactive wedding thing. So.
Yeah, man, I'm willing to talk to anybody. Just reach out, man. I'm always there. I had so many people help me when I was coming up, and I don't want to name drop because I know I'll miss somebody, but I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for the pioneers that got me to where I was. And so I'm just the same way, man. Call me. I will answer any question.
Sounds great, Cubby. Gang, we're going to take about a 1-minute jump here, and we'll be right back. Tonight's DJNTV show is sponsored by the following. DJ Event Planner, Electra Voice, Max Photo Booth and DJ Booth Design, DJ Trivia and DJ Bingo, ProX Direct, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, Odyssey Cases, Perfect Portals, JMOZ Lighting, and Instant DJ Requests, along with the DJNTV Insiders at DJNTVtraining.com. All right, here we are for the final session of our show tonight here, talking about tips for weddings and things. We've got Jay Brannan and Brian with us tonight. Brian Red. Good evening, gentlemen.
How are you?
Good evening, John.
It's good to see you guys.
See you.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys on. Initially, we were going to have, Brian is thinking he'd be coming in a little bit later because he had a very important puppy training session going on this evening. Brian?
Yeah, Blanca was, I signed Blanca and Chico, the puppy, up for puppy training classes, and that lasted about 2 minutes, and they kicked her out because the dog couldn't focus, and they gave me my money back.
Oh, my goodness.
So apparently you have to train a dog before you go to dog training classes. That's what I just learned today.
I didn't know that was a
Thought
thing.
you knew that. No?
Yeah.
It's like working out before you go to the gym or washing your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher.
Right.
That one I get. That one
you
I
learn
get.
something new every day.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy. So, gentlemen, what I want to kind of talk about here in this next hour is, and Jay, this is going to fit right into your life for a number of years, doing tips for DJs out there.
Yep.
Really, what tonight has been about is giving little ideas and insights and tips for what people who are out there going to be getting into their wedding season here in another couple of weeks, or somebody who's just kind of getting started in that realm. So, where do we want to start?
I got nothing.
Okay, great. Well, this has been the greatest show ever that the three of us have done.
Brent, I just want to say, no, we're back in full swing, and I know Brian's had events, I've had events, and it's a different year. Like there's a different vibe in the air at the events. And I think that what I've learned very quickly, and I'll give a quick true story from Saturday's wedding, I used 2 pieces of gear in 2 different areas. So as I was setting up the second area, fired up the computer, plugged everything in, everything lit up. I'm like, great. And I haven't been on this particular piece of gear since November. But I tested it at home, but I forgot the button is different than the other piece of gear's button. So I proceeded to press the load, what I thought was the load track button, and it was the prepare button. So I just kept putting tracks into a separate file that I couldn't see. And I genuinely got terrified thinking the gear's broken.
Oh.
And then I somehow stopped and I just calmed down and I looked at things and I read. And I'm like, oh. And when I pressed the right button, the song went in. So I think the first thing to do is, believe it or not, if you haven't been on your gear, go back and look at your gear. Try it all out. Make sure the speakers are working, your cables are working, the mics are working. Because you're gonna get that moment of panic, because it's a muscle, and if you haven't been using it, I'm fortunate that I've been on Twitch and some other things, but weddings are their own animal, and I think the more calm you can come in and prepared, the better. That would certainly be my first big tip. Just make sure everything, how to use everything, and everything is still working.
So, and Brian, you were putting together, was it maybe not a completely new system, but you were kind of modifying your system for this upcoming season?
I was just kind of cleaning house.
Okay.
I was making sure that I didn't have excess cables that I didn't need, because it was just more stuff I had to lug around. I was trying to streamline things, really, think about, how many spare XLR cables do I really need? I have 3 of them on my system. I certainly don't need 8 spares. So I was going through that whole process. But, one thing that I did do, and I would just kind of throw it out there for anybody who is getting back into gigging now, who has been off for gigging for a while, even if it looks like you have everything there, just double check. Because I did a wedding and it went really well, but I did it without headphones because I didn't have my headphones. I usually always have them in my computer bag, but I had taken them out to do that Daytona show that I was doing in November.
Yeah.
And forgot to put them back in my computer bag. So, I mean, not the end of the world. I know my music, but I was kind of DJing off of waveforms. And I don't like doing that. I typically like to do it a different way. But so just double check and make sure you've got everything is I think, a big tip that I could give anybody just getting back into this.
I think getting that ground piece of being prepared before you leave is the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Brian said.
Yeah, and I've talked to some guys who've made a checklist, and there's been over the years I've kind of chuckled about that. And now that I'm getting a little bit, and I'm not doing as many shows as I'm doing, otherwise I was doing weddings every weekend, and I'd leave everything in the truck, so you just knew it was there. Well, now I'm like, well, okay, one a month, and then I unload the truck. That checklist idea is really, really looking appealing.
It's interesting that you say that. I was thinking about this because, when people say checklist to me, for years, I had the problem that, and it's not a bad problem to have, but I was constantly showcasing new equipment. So I was changing things. Okay, we'll take these speakers out this week. We'll take this table out this week. We'll take this controller or this mixer out this week. So it wasn't like it was the same system, but maybe a really good thing to have is a core system checklist where it's just general. Mm-hmm. 2 speakers, cabling, table, X amount of lights, X amount of spare cables, X amount of, backup and main computer, whatever you bring. Maybe that would be a good checklist to make.
Yeah, for sure. There are times where it would be helpful because once you're to that event and don't have your headphones or had the wrong microphone, I don't have a wireless mic. Oh no.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people, I don't always do, extra uplighting, but sometimes I do. Well, don't put that on your core checklist. That's something you would add to your system. Mm-hmm. But like a core checklist just for, basic sound and lighting, like you say, microphones, headphones, computers, that kind of stuff, that might be a good idea.
I think the thing I tried last year, and it worked really, really well, I bought 2 empty bags, and I brought them to my first big event. And one bag was going to be reception, and one bag was going to be either dinner, ceremony, whatever the other system is. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the night, I left all the other cable bags, because I have 3 or 4 bags that are mismatched that, like Brian does. I need to get back. I don't need 50 XLRs,
Right.
200 IECs, but I have them.
Right,
If
just
I
in
start
case.
my own, computer store, I can certainly power the place. But I think what really helped me was I took an empty bag and I said, every cable I need to hook up an XC, 2 Evolve 50s, the lighting program, my wireless mic, my laptop, and all of it goes in just this bag, and that bag is marked R for reception. Then the second bag gets a power supply for the computer. You may have to buy some things. I used to have 2 power supplies. I have 3. One stays with the bag because if I lose a power supply for the MacBooks, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, another quick tip, the night before your event, charge everything to 10. Charge the laptops, charge the lighting. Everything gets plugged in the night before. So the day of, if you show up and there's an issue, you've got 100% juice.
Right.
But by having one bag that this bag goes with me. And the other thing I found was, and maybe you guys do or don't do this, as Brian can tell you, a lot of my events, and like you, John, I'll have 10, 12, 13 hours of dancing at my events. They're very, very long. So I'll be driving home, and it might be the next night. A Saturday night wedding, I might get home at 6 o'clock Sunday night.
Yeah.
So what I need to do,
Dork.
I broke an area in the garage down. Now I've got, the shelving, and I try to be organized, which I'm not. But I decided last year, this little square area is off limits to everything and everyone. And any gear that comes out of the car has to go there. Because the problem I've had in the past is, what did I do with that bag? Oh, I put it over there. And then I put the speakers over there. And then the cables and stands went over. You can't do that to yourself because it will freak you out on a Saturday or a Friday when you're trying to load and you go, I'm missing something. I know I am. If you know everything that came out went into this one square, then everything in that one square can go back in.
Nice. Yeah.
And that really gets you over. Because it happened to me before my first wedding a few weeks ago. I had moved some things. You run in the garage or storage, you got to move one thing to get something else, and you don't put it back.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know is, it's like, where's the top to one of the Evolve 50s? It should be with the other top. Why is it on top of that shelf, on top of Christmas paper? Like, who put it? Oh, I did. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I do the same thing. Very similar. It's just like what I kind of know how I puzzle the back of the truck together. So I look for missing puzzle pieces. What's supposed to be here? Oh yeah, that.
100%. Yeah.
And in the gig logs that I've been doing, the last couple I did, I'll stand back there with the video. And I'll say, okay, 2 speakers. Okay, 2 columns. There's the truck to haul it all in. There's a table. There's a mixer. There's computers in the back seat. And here are the cables to wire it all together. And here are the lights. Okay, what's missing? Oh, laptop stand. Take 2. Go back. Get that. Dumb things like that. Are helpful.
So that happened to me, and now I got to share the story. I can't lift or anything yet because of the knee. So I had to have Lori. The truck was loaded in case Michael needed it, and she needed the truck to go marketplace shopping. So she unloads the truck. She loads it to the way she thought it made more sense. Well, that's not and it's like, I looked at the truck and it's like, half my gear's gone. Somebody stole my gear. Oh, no. So, yes, I completely understand, Brian, when you've got that methodology of how things go in.
Yeah.
And if it's not that way, it doesn't look right. There's something wrong.
Well, and you can even mess with that a little. I mean, I've got a Jeep Grand Cherokee versus the van I used to have. Well, with the van, I put everything in horizontally because with a big van, it made sense. But now with the Grand Cherokee, the 2 Bose speaker subs go in each door and they sit there. So there's space between them. And then everything has to come in vertically. So as I open the back of the Jeep, I can reach in and pull, stands, bags, mic stand. Then I've got the ceremony system, then the 2 Evolve tops, then the XC because it's the longest, so it has to go through the middle. And then I can, just like Brian, I can literally look and be like, where are my wireless mics? Where's my suitcase with my wireless? Oh, I didn't put it in yet.
Yeah.
You didn't say Bose speakers, did you?
Yeah, he did.
No, did I really? I'm
Yes,
so
you
sorry.
did.
I meant to say I use the Evolve 50s. Did I say
Right.
Bose?
You said Bose.
You said Bose.
I was, I'm sorry. I was talking with somebody recently about their Bose system yesterday.
I was going to say, did you buy
It was
both?
on my mind.
I was going to say, I don't know
I'm
if I've ever
happily using Evolve 50s.
Okay.
To the dismay of
just
some
checking.
people, but I'm quite happy with them. But yeah, I think there's that, it's keeping the little things organized too. I've got a terrible music system for you and Brian and Post and a lot of other people, but it's my approach and it works.
All it has to do is make sense to you.
That's the thing. And
Yeah.
one of the things I do that makes no sense to people is because I got burned once years ago. When I make a crate for an event, I date it. And then under it, I put the same date: ceremony, cocktail, dinner. And then I know I've got everything. And then I've got it broken down so I can have it on multiple drives. But the thing I do is, especially the special songs, I color tag each one so they come to the top of the list if I go by tag. More importantly, I make sure that every single solitary track plays
And you're a
Now that-
Serato user.
in Serato.
Okay.
So I go through and hit every single song, whether it's 100 songs or 10 songs, every one of them has to play.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't play at home, it's certainly not going to play there. And the true story, I bought a song for a first dance back in 2013 on iTunes.
Oh, yeah.
It played when I listened to it. I bought it. I downloaded it. I pulled it over onto my drive. I got to the affair. I hit play and I looked down, and the waveform that should go like this was like this big. And the song played for 30 seconds and stopped. And I loaded it again and it stopped. And I ran out on the dance floor. I said, I will make this up to you. I'm so sorry. Your second choice was this Dave Matthews song. Please, can I play that? Or would you like to wait and do your first dance after dinner? And I will buy the song again, but somehow this file is corrupt. No, dude, that's fine. We'll do the Dave Matthews. They get all done. They very sweetly said, you know what? We're actually happy it happened because we really wanted the Dave Matthews song. So we think it was more of a spiritual thing. And I'm like,
Right. Meant to be. Yeah.
yeah, meant to
Yeah.
be. And I was like, so that's the last time. And again, every wedding gets 2 identical drives. The morning of the wedding, I free sync. I take the drive that's my main drive. I take the secondary drive, plug them both into the tower, go to file sync, and I tell it sync the old drive and the new drive. And every week. So I know if something were to, happen, I can move a drive over and I'm okay. And I've got people that look at that and say that's a little excessive. Not in my world.
Right.
2 laptops, 2 drives. I mean, that's what you need to have. I'm doing an event this Wednesday afternoon at a convenient type location because of the date. 420. So I'm going to change the gear for that. It'll be smaller speakers. I'll still bring 2 laptops and 2 hard drives. I'm playing reggae music for a few hours for people, but I think you have to have a system in place where there's consistency. I can't grab it because I can't. Maybe I can. I can. This has gone 20 years to every event I've ever done. I had an event over the weekend. So if I open it up, you'll see there's the extra hard drive. That's 1 hard drive. And then there's a file that always goes to every event. And it's got all the music, all my notes, anything I need to have for the event.
That's
This will
good.
get switched out this week for another wedding. That hard drive will come out of the bag and get updated. Both hard drives go in and get zipped. They sit next to my backpack that sits next to the back door before I leave. And I've already checked the backpack that everything's in it. And again, I know guys that are like, dude, just put a reminder on your phone. And that's something Pulse got me into. He'll put a reminder on his phone and tell Siri, when I leave the house on Saturday, when I'm 100 yards away, remind me of something. I'm like, why? He goes, just in case. I'm like, but I don't understand. He goes, you can have it remind you of anything. If you're going to a birthday party, you could say, Siri, remind me to bring the birthday cake. Well, his is, Siri, remind me to bring my laptops or remind me to bring my hard drives. If you need that kind of updating,
Everybody's brain works different.
Yeah.
For
It really does. I don't think there's
Yeah.
a perfect wedding system,
No.
but I think there's, like Brian said, I think it's the system that works best for you.
Yeah.
Because
everybody's
it's
brain.
your wedding.
Yeah.
It's not our wedding.
Everybody's brain processes things different. And I'll give you an example. When you said that you had an event at a convenient location, my first thought was convenience store. And then I'm
Right.
thinking you're kind of a Keanu Reeves lookalike.
I didn't
I'm
want to say
thinking
weed shop.
Circle K from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, where you're having a gig at the same time as Circle K. So that's how
Right.
my brain works.
Right. Well, I didn't want to come out and say a cannabis, so I thought I'd say convenience.
But you just did. So.
I did now, yeah. Well, because it's 420.
Yeah, he was
Just at a mellow location, that would have been.
And you know, for what it's worth, I have never been to this location, nor would I. It's not something I would do. But it's still funny that I'm the guy that's going to DJ it.
Of course.
Yeah. And then Friday, I'm at a happy hour at a bar, and and then I have a wedding Saturday. And this is a good weekly example. My van the truck's loaded. I will unload it tomorrow. I will load it with different gear for Wednesday. I will unload it Thursday. I will load just a controller for Friday. And then Saturday morning, I'll load it for a wedding. And each setup will be a little different. But it'll still be, okay, the hard drives, the laptops. Because I could hook up a headphone speaker out to one speaker and wing it.
Yeah.
If we had to, you know. And I think that's part of the prepared thing. Do you have a small emergency kit little bag with all and I miss Radio Shack for this reason. Do you have the mini to RCA to quarter to XLR adapters if you had to? By the way, Brian forgot his headphones. Brian knows this, you know this, and I know this. I forgot a mic at one wedding and I spoke through my headphones. I had to make announcements.
Cool. Pioneers.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
I've heard good things about that place.
I have, yeah. I know a guy.
Oh, you know a guy? Yeah,
I know a
that's
couple
always
guys,
good.
actually.
That's
Yeah.
always good.
So,
But yeah, I mean, if you had to, you could take your headphones. And it's shocking how a lot of newer generational DJs don't know that trick. That you can take your headphones, plug them into your microphone.
if you have a quarter-inch microphone.
quarter inch. If
Yes,
it's just an XLR jack, you're kind of in trouble. But a lot
Right.
of a lot have either two mics, one's combo, one's quarter.
Yeah, true.
You
true.
can plug it in. It's not the most amazing sounding thing, but in a pinch, you can speak through the headphones and it will, make
Yes,
announcements.
that does work too. Yeah, you can talk through headphones. It looks
Yeah.
ridiculous,
It does, but it's
but it works.
what
It's
to do in
effective.
case of.
Yeah.
You know, I think the kids like to call it if this then that.
Yeah, in the world kind of, Mad Max put it together kind of thing. Yeah.
You know, and just I find too many people are afraid to even reach out and ask questions. There's so much information that you're providing, John, with so many different avenues on YouTube and shows. And
Can you
the site.
imagine? I mean, it just looks dumb.
It does.
I mean, it works, but
it
it
works.
looks really dumb. Hi, I'm talking into my headphones because I'm the idiot who forgot my microphone. Please welcome Sally and Bill. Give them a big round of applause as they make their way onto the dance floor.
Yep.
It works.
I was just
But-
going to say, I don't even have
Get
a.
introduced, and the videographer, as long as he's not keen in on you,
It'll,
But I think this year the DJs are going to find, my prediction, because I'm already seeing it, weddings are a little different. They were different last year, and they're a little different this year, and they're different in that it's almost like there's weight off the shoulder of everyone. Last year was still, yeah, we're so happy for my niece and nephew, and then by the time dinner ended, we had a mass exodus of people leaving
sure.
because they didn't want to get too close on the dance floor. It was still mandates and everything else. Now, I mean, at all my outdoor venues, people feel very free. I'm not seeing a lot of people leave early because I don't think they're as worried. And I think brides and grooms are much more appreciative because we've all lost people during this. We're all keen and accepting of the fact that this isn't the same as it was when it was scheduled a year or two ago.
Just cut him off before he segues. Because he will. I mean, he's been going for 8 minutes.
He segues? Is this
lot.
is this something new? I don't remember. Did Jay do
A
that?
lot.
I'm
mean-
unfamiliar with this term, segue.
I mean,
You know that thing you drive around?
yeah, that.
I'm taking a sip. This would be a good time for someone else to speak.
Yeah, because that's you got your 7 seconds. Go.
I'm back.
But I think that the changing of a wedding, and that is something I actually want to get to before we wrap up, is how things are different, because we've got some of our Canadian friends who haven't seen a wedding since 2019, really.
Right.
And there's even Minnesota here. There's some places where we aren't into our wedding season yet. That usually comes after Easter is when we will start that. I start the 1st of May there, but we have been fairly quiet. It doesn't. last year there was a couple here, a couple there, but we weren't back to any kind of a pre-pandemic level type of situation. So for those who haven't been to many weddings or done many, talking about that will be definitely something I want to make sure we hit. Did we wrap up the gear?
Probably.
I think the only probably last part of gear, and we've talked about this on other shows, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it, is the whole part of availability. If you're wanting to upgrade gear, if you're wanting to replace gear or whatever, is make sure that you have ordered it, make sure you have it before you sell your old stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this from firsthand. I cannot stress this enough. Do not. I know it seems like the right thing to do. I need to sell gear A to buy gear B.
Yeah.
Don't. I don't borrow the money from Brian or something, but don't, because I'm just telling you, from a inside the world of manufacturing, this isn't going to get much better this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just
because
the reality of it.
just because it's available on the website doesn't mean it's actually available.
Until it's in your hand.
Yeah.
I got a call the other day for an older piece of gear that came out in 2014 that I happen to own, and the gentleman very nicely said, "This was $18.99 brand new. I will give you $18.99." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "I need the gear. I don't really care about the money because I can't get the gear." So you're gonna start seeing that, and an inside tip is check with lots of different dealers, because different dealers get gear at different times.
Yes.
Go to mom and pop. They may have got it in and no one is checking with them. It's amazing how the little tiny, shop down the street might have brand new gear because nobody bothered to call. They're all going to the big, huge box type stores.
That's for anything. I mean,
yeah.
EJ gear or anything else you need in your life. Just because one store has it out of stock, check around. I just went through it with some car parts. Something didn't exist, and I looked at one site, and sure enough, they had it on all their shipping locations in stock. Ordered it, it came, no problem. But a lot of other places just didn't have it.
Yeah, and like I said, that's not going to get any different throughout the year. I don't believe it will get better as time goes. The summer will be better than the spring, but this is an issue that's here through this year, I believe.
So we're going to go to 9 on this.
Yeah. Yep.
We got more stuff to talk about.
No, we've got a few more things. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Because I got a weirdo thing I can talk about, but I'll wait till you ask.
No, let's go ahead. We can do weirdo things. I think that's part of this. Is anybody who's watched you guys on Tuesday nights? By the way, Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock Eastern, DJNTV.com/chill. The guys get together and they record a weekly show. They realize how focused Jay is all the time. I'm sure of it.
The Tuesday night Jay monologue. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tuesday night Jay monologue, but the music show. But once in a while, Brian does have a tangent, a segue, a little bit of a diversion.
Glimmer.
So please go ahead. I'll bring us back to where I want to go. I want to get to before the end. So we're good.
I actually I touched on this on the article that I wrote for our May edition of the Shucky News.
Yes.
And Jay and I have spoke about this, and he's experiencing this as well. I think it was probably, I'm going to say 5 years ago or less, where all of a sudden there was this trend where people were having their cousin or their neighbor or their uncle get ordained and do their wedding, where they were doing the wedding for the very first time.
Yep.
When they were doing this at first, what was happening was they would do a rehearsal and they would have a lot of questions. And I started offering a service of rehearsal director, essentially, where I show up with a battery powered speaker and a wireless microphone. I'm kind of directing, telling people where to go and where to stand. And if they have questions, I answer them. And, maybe they have some ideas of things they want to do. And I help them logistically figure out how it would work best. I wasn't running things, but I was just there to help, Charge for that. And it's subject to availability as to if you're available on a Friday night before the Saturday wedding or not, of course. But the new trend, and it's happening more than 50% at more than 50% of my events, and that's being very generous. It's much more than 50%. most of my events, not only are they bringing in the amateur officiant, but they skipped rehearsal. So I'm experiencing this phenomenon where I'm going in and directing on the fly.
Sure.
Like 45 minutes before go. I'm explaining things to an officiant, like, don't forget to ask everyone to be seated after, they've reached the altar.
Number one issue.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And please stand for the bride. Say this when you hear the song. This is the song I'm going to play, but if you're not familiar with it or you missed the cue, don't worry. I'll signal you. I've got your back. You're just kind of never anything I was interested in doing. I'm a music person. I'm interested in playing music. I'm not interested in wedding ceremonies, but it's part of our job, I guess. And we've seen these often enough. Those of us who do wedding ceremonies, we kind of know how they work. We've seen what works, what doesn't work.
Yep.
And it's just this new job I'm doing. And again, no rehearsal, just on the fly. And I don't really want to get into this too much, but I have raised my prices accordingly because of this.
Right.
Because I'm convinced that not everyone can do this. Not every DJ you find is going to be able to take care of this for you, but I can.
No. And to that end, I am in full agreement with Brian. My issue is always, do I try to sell my services for the night before, which is traditionally, let's say, a Thursday or a Friday or even a Saturday? Well, if it's a Saturday and I'm booked, it's useless.
Yeah.
Right.
Selling myself for X money on a Friday versus booking a full wedding, I figured not getting involved. So what I've been doing, because I do one event a day, so if I'm playing ceremony prelude music at 3:30, I traditionally will show up about 1:30. Now that's very early.
Yeah.
But it's also very early because I can set up all my gear and, barring catastrophic failure, I know I can drive 7 or 8 miles to a GC or a store and get something in a pinch. So that's just my comfort level. Again, the business has my name on it, not somebody else's.
Sure.
So I get to make my own rules. What I've been doing, Brian, and it kind of speaks to what you and I talked about, is that I've been telling the clients ahead of time, hey, you're officiant. Is it a friend you got for the day of? Yes. Has he ever done this or has she ever done this? No.
Yeah, right.
You know what? I'm going to be on site about 1:30. Why don't you tell Steve or John or Jimmy, what time are they coming in? Oh, they're going to show up, the ceremony, prelude 3. Ceremony's at 4. They're going to be there about 3. I'm like, why don't you tell them to show up about 2:30?
Right.
Because I'd love to answer any questions they have.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to show off the 2002, but,
TheChurchOf.com. Yeah.
that's why I am the pastor.
The Church of
But,
the Interwebs.
and by the way, I've said this repeatedly, and if you're a DJ today who speaks in front of people and is comfortable, I have to tell you, I think you're a fool if you don't take this advice and run with it. Look up the Universal Life Church and join it.
I'm a total fool.
And
I ain't doing
become
it.
a licensed minister who could legally do a wedding if the officiant didn't show up. The officiant were to get sick, as has happened to mine. I had one taken away in an ambulance. He had a stroke. The officiant somehow can't do it. You're there as a lifeline because you're going to be there before the ceremony setting up, and you're going to be there for the ceremony. And I've done 6 of them on what we call an emergency. I was not hired to do them, nor was it planned. But to a grateful bride and groom and family, I was able to step in and legally marry them. The first time it happened in an emergency, that couple is still married 10 years later with 3 beautiful children. Admittedly, I did have one that divorced a month later. I didn't know I had anything
You play the
at
odds,
all,
man.
at all. Yeah,
Play the
you know,
odds.
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, it is.
But really, when I tell clients, by the way, I'm also an ordained minister in the Universal Life Church. If for some reason your officiant were not to show up, that there
You've
was an
got it.
emergency, I'm happy if you would request it to step in and finalize and marry you and sign their certificate legally, making you a husband and wife in the state of, the legal system. And they kind of are always blown away still. They're like, you're kidding. I'm like, no, I used to work for a yacht company and I tell the whole story. But it's just one more thing to separate you from the pact because it's going to happen. It doesn't happen often. It hasn't happened in 5 or 6 years, but it has happened 6 times.
Yeah.
Where I've literally had someone say, the guy they hired can't come. It's 3:30. They get married at 4. They have no one there. Okay, I'll do it. I don't want to. It's not my sole job, but I, luckily have written up some small generic vows so I can stand there. And, even though it's funny on the surface, when it does happen and you can step in, man, let me tell you, it changes the dynamics a lot.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And until you had mentioned it, Brian, about the lack of practice with the ceremonies, outdoor ceremonies that we've experienced, the 4 that I did last year were exactly that. They were, none of them practiced, and even prior to 2 of them, I ended up being called upon more than the other, and trying to get them to go through and get the people there, because they were up in the barn getting dressed, and these people are over here doing this. And it's like,
time, guys. Let's go.
Like, come on, there's the person who's going to be doing it. Where is he? I would like to be able to at least get the music cue points down and to know what are you going to say right before. And so I guess I hadn't realized that was more. I figured it was just a coincidence that I had a couple that did that, and instead of it being a trend.
I think it's a trend. Jay's seen it too.
Yeah, it's been going on for years. I've genuinely not done a wedding with a formal pastor or someone who is a wedding officiant who was hired and paid hundreds of dollars. And I'm not kidding, in probably 8 years. It's always a friend. It's an uncle. It's their pastor, but it's not when you look up wedding officiants who just are people that do weddings on the weekends, who have a title like mine or something else, that has really gone to the side of the road in my area. And it's that backyard more, our friend's going to do it. He loves us. My brother's going to do it. It's so cool. And I get why people would want that, sort of. But I'm also a fan of, don't you want that family member to be able to witness and not have to be part of? I've had probably like 7 or 8 dads get the 1-day pass so they can do it. And it reminds me, the other thing is this. Outside of telling them everything to do, it's important that we know what the cue is for the song as the recessional. 2 things I started doing a few years ago. One was telling the bride's parents to sit on the groom's side and the groom's parents to sit on the bride's side. And they look at me and say, why would we do that? Well, because you're in the front row. Do you want to stare looking at the ceremony?
At back of her head or them?
At your daughter's back or at your daughter's face? Right. Oh, we never thought of that. I'm like, yeah, I got it from a wedding coordinator who did it at a wedding that I was the DJ. She flipped them, and I'm like, that is the coolest thing. I'm going to totally steal that. She's like, no, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing we started doing at one outdoor venue, because they have a little chapel where they ring a bell when the bride and groom kiss. What happens after the bride and groom kiss? Traditionally, people start to clap and make a lot of noise, and then they quiet down.
Then the introduction.
In their introduction. So what we've now been doing and recommending, and it's been working amazing, the end of the ceremony, the officiant will say, now by the power invested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife. It gives me great pleasure to introduce for the first time Mr. and Mrs. John Young. You now may kiss the bride. They kiss, and I start playing their music. They walk.
Right.
There is no pause. There is no, let's slow down and come up again.
Oh, yeah. And those are the things you've got to discuss.
It's been, and if you can tell them to do it right, it works amazing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The other thing that might shock a lot of DJs, and I think the chat will probably go against me on this, I no longer, and I did this for 20 years, I no longer tell people on the introduction of the wedding party and bride and groom to stand up for the bride and groom. Because a photographer said to me, I would love it if you didn't say that. And I'm like, it's out of respect. Everyone has to stand. I can't get good photos. If they stand on their own, that's one thing. But when you tell them to, I now have a room full of people and a bride and groom walking in the middle. I'd really rather capture them as they walk in. So that's about a year ago, I stopped saying, please stand for the bride and groom. And I tell the bride and groom ahead of time, just so they're cued in. Hey, for what it's worth, I'm not going to ask the guests to stand for you because I want the photos to look better. Oh, that's awesome. So it's a benefit, not a detriment.
When I'm doing these, what I try to do And because I don't have a horse in this. So what I try to do is play off of what they already are thinking about doing. I'm not going in there and telling them, I'm not going there and being the wedding ceremony diva. You must do it like this and you must do it like that. Okay, this is what you're going to do. Okay, so let's try it like this. Does that sound good? Yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, sometimes I'll make suggestions and they don't want to do them, and that's okay. I don't do what you want, but I'm just trying to be a coach, working with what they already have.
Do you reference the traditions? Like, I get people that are like, oh, the groom, the parents are going in, the groom's going in, and then the parents walk in. I'm like, okay, traditionally the parents go in so they can watch the groom walk in.
Yeah, well, what I tell everybody, the first thing I say is like, just so we're clear on this, the rules is that there are no rules. We're already not in a church, so we've blown that tradition. You can do whatever you want. So with that in mind, have some fun with this, be creative, and let's do this. And that way they can come up with things they want to do. And I try to work with them. And I don't tell them to say anything besides, if you're going to have them stand up, have them sit down. If they choose to do it. And when do I play my songs? This last one, the thing was that they had the unity candle. And I asked, hey, they got matches for that? She says, no. Big lighter. I handed it to her like I was sneaking or something. Like, oh, cool. So they had a lighter for that. The parents took care of that. But it was funny because the last wedding I did, I'm like, well, who is going to be your officiant? They're like, oh, well, it's Sister Judy Elephant. And I'm like, okay. Somebody from the church. Well, I've said that because of the Chi, but her name was Judy. I can't remember her last name. But I'm assuming it's someone who's done this before.
I thought she was still like working. That's amazing.
Class.
Shut up.
Thank you. So anyway, that was an Easter egg, and that's well remembered. So apparently she had never done this before, but she'd seen it done many times, and she was so sweet, and I loved working with her. And yeah, she had it down. She knew what to say, but she was missing a few cues, and I had her back, And it's been that experience with nearly any officiant I've worked with, whether it be a legit, pastor of a church or whatever. Especially the people who work at church, they really appreciate it when you are there and helping them out and with cues and things. I think more so than Uncle Bob does.
I had a wedding years ago, and the officiant decided, with a lavalier mic on, that it would be a good idea to hold the Bible like this.
Yeah.
And he just kept
that noise,
and to the point where it was reverberating, and I don't think he caught it.
Oh no!
So I killed his mic, and he didn't hear it. And he kind of looked at the back where I was, and I'm like, and he was like, and this is the best part. And if you're a newer DJ and you haven't experienced this, you will. If you cue someone at a ceremony, they'll say it. They'll say it out loud. That's why, when you give someone a microphone, it's always hot. But you never turn the volume up until the bride is standing with her dad or mother or whoever in front of them. You ask the officiant, are you going to say anything who gives this woman away? Let me see what you're saying. First line, who gives this woman to be married today? Okay, your mic will not be turned on until she gets here. I'm so anal, I take the body pack, I open it, I turn it on, and I say to the groom and the officiant, full battery, it is now on. I close it, I put it in their pocket, and I walk away, and I tell them, you won't have the ability to speak until she stands in front of you. Oh, so I said, I'm not into making YouTube videos of, check out what the groom said secretly. Like, I don't find that to help. And it's,
right.
Now, it's funny how many, they come back to me on reviews where they say, the fact that he was so concerned with our day that he made sure the mics weren't on until they had to be. Because, I've seen scattery DJs get stuck in the, okay, mics, okay, and I have to wear a headset at most events now. A lot of events out here because of the distance between vendors. You're wearing an in-ear monitor. I will get on the monitor and say, mics are live. Groom's mic's live. Officiant's mic's live. Because I want everyone to know I've done my part. Now, it might seem excessive, but it's certainly gotten me a lot of bookings because people look at it as that's what we want. We want professionals who dot every T, dot every I and slash every T, whatever, and are concerned about that. So
It's all very theatrical, isn't it?
it really
Very
is.
much
I mean,
so,
Brian's point is perfect about, say to an officiant, let me see what you're saying. What's the first thing you're saying? Because if the first thing they're saying is something different, you need to be prepared. The other day, I have 2 mics on the board. Both mics are out. The owner of the venue comes over and says, can you make the unplugged announcement? I said, no. Because I didn't have a mic with me. I had to get it after the ceremony. Afterwards, I told her, this should have been with me. I apologize. It won't happen again. So next time, I will plug in one of my mics and say, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wedding ceremony. This is an unplugged ceremony, meaning we ask you to
No
please
phones.
refrain from using cell phones, cameras, iPads, laptops, PCs to take photos, but we also ask that you turn all these devices off so you can be present and in the moment and enjoy the love of Brian and Blanca.
Boy, you laid it on thick.
He does.
Oh,
Yeah.
like marmalade.
Here's the tip there, though, I believe, something I've been doing for a while, and I started doing it because whenever I don't do it, I'm walking a lot because I'm thinking to myself, why would I possibly need a microphone during a wedding ceremony? I'm not the officiant. I'm not getting married. What am I going to do? And as soon as I think that in my head, could you make an announcement that you need to do this and that? And hey, could you just tell everybody that afterward for photos? So I always have a wired mic, not a wireless. I need a wireless. My speaker's right here. A wired mic right here. Because I know I'm going to have to make some announcement.
Something will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably
Even
a good
after the
tip.
ceremony.
Yeah. Oh,
How
always
many
after the
times
ceremony.
Have you done after? Because they can't remember. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, if we could please have the immediate family remain for photographs.
Right, and
the
everybody
wedding
else
party
go
will
up
be
for
joining in a
cocktails
moment.
and-
Everyone else can go over to the cocktail over there. It's 100%. I've just decided. I now tell the officiant, hey, at the end of it, once you're done and you say, gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Smith, husband and wife, I'm turning your mic off. You're not saying another word. I'll take care of it from there.
Right.
Plug their mic, put in the handheld, and the second the wedding party has come down the aisle, lower the track, get on the mic, and go, ladies and gentlemen, if immediate family will please remain for photographs.
Sure.
The rest of you are invited to cocktail hour. Please have a great night. Whatever. Boom. Because at that point, you're in charge.
I think, and this might sound
You have
really,
to kind of take it over.
really stupid, and I don't know if you guys do this or not, but everyone's nervous, including these first-time officiants. So I'm making it a point to pep talk them. You're doing a great job. It's gonna be great. No, look, I trust you. I've got all the faith in the world, and you're gonna do a great job with this. I'm like the coach, literally the coach
very much
on this
so.
thing.
It goes a
less-
long way. It comes,
Less
it
mechanical
comes out
and
in
more.
review.
It's support, is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You and I know this, Brian. John, you know this. And when I see the interaction on video and hear the stories of some newer DJs and even older DJs who are just focused solely on, let me get the gear set up, wiki, I'm good to go. I'm going to chill. I can't stress enough. If you can make friends with the wedding party, with the immediate family, with the officiant, with anyone involved, that you are going to
That's
go
huge.
so much further that night.
Yeah.
I go out of my way to meet the wedding party, introduce myself. Guys, how's it going? Hey, quick note. Can't wait to party with you guys later on. But if all of you could please turn off your cell phones or put your cell phones at least on airplane for me, because the RF signals can mess around with the wireless mics that the groom and the officiant are
Right.
using.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for letting us know. Hey, just like you guys, I want this to be the best day for Brian and Blanca. I really do. Oh, man. Thanks for looking out, bro. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought you'd hear those words, did you, Brian? Well, we ever surprised you.
I don't like those
We're
words.
doing this
together
on
like
Monday
that.
night. Ryan, look behind you. There's an officiant. No.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Last show is he'll be checking into an asylum to get over that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's a lot of those little, the things that we kind of take for granted,
Nice
where you
try.
walk around. Yeah. You walk around thinking, what do I need to do to win? Because the end of the night, I need everyone to be on the same page. This was a great wedding. Everyone that worked here did a great job. It all turned out the way we wanted. Everyone exceeded expectation. It starts early. You make friends with everybody.
Yeah.
You're kind. You're concerned for the bride and groom. I'm guilty of this years ago, and even recently saying the bride and groom. Well, guess what? Practice their names. Use their names.
Oh yeah, that's
the whole day.
You and
It's
I had this
always
conversation a
we
long
did.
time ago.
A long time ago, I was famous for, I'd like to let the bride and groom come over to the first. Like, no, dude. Not to be disrespectful of anything, but you've got to say their names. You really do.
It's interesting. I had this experience this last gig I did because they were both medical professionals, doctors,
Right.
and they were not taking each other's last name. But I don't think that they were public about that.
Right.
And I made the suggestion to both them and the officiant, let's just call them Ryan and Jessica, or Jessica and Ryan, and mix it up all night. Let's not worry about the last name.
Yeah.
Right.
Because everybody knows them here. And it's a 100-person wedding, not even 85 people. We don't have to be that formal about it. It'll seem really cool,
family and
cozy, and
friends.
formal. And we won't trigger Aunt Betty from Kalamazoo about it.
Right. And by the way, that was advice given to me in 1997 when I did my first same-sex 2 guys commitment ceremony. And another DJ who had done several of them said to me, 2 things I will tell you. They are weddings. Treat them like a wedding.
Yeah.
But more importantly, for introduction's sake, introduce them as the newlyweds and then switch the names. And I'm like, what do you mean switch the names?
Back and
If it's
forth.
Tom and John, say, I'd like to introduce Tom and John. The next time you say their names, say, now I'd like to ask John and Tom. He goes, you're never giving one a role of superiority over the other one. You're not making one husband and one a wife. You're making them equal.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that because I remember when my sister got married when I was a teenager, and we had a reception. My oldest sister got married. We had no reception or anything. It was very old school. Get married, go home. But we had a reception for this one, and there were MCs there, and they were talking about Vic and Denise. We never heard it like that before. It was always Denise and Vic from our perspective.
Sure.
From his family's perspective, it was Vic and Denise. But yeah, so it would have been cool if they would have thrown us a bone once in a while, so it didn't sound so foreign to us. You know what I mean?
Have you had clients say that to you? I've had brides say to me, when I will ask them before the wedding, like introductions. Here are your choices: Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, Mr. and Mrs. John and Sally Smith, and the brides will come back and be like, "Oh, just introduce us as Sally and John Smith." And I will use, now you and I differ here. I guarantee.
No, that's not what
I will say to
gonna
them.
say.
Here's the thing. This is, if you go by tradition, are you taking John's name? Because you're adapting his name. I understand the autonomy. I understand. So your choices become, you want to be John and Vicky Smith, or you just want to be John and Vicky, or what? But I've had many a bride say, introduce us as Vicky and John. And I'll look at the guy and be like, technically, I think I told you real quick, I did a naval dentist wedding. She was the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
He was not.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Buffy Storm. I remember it because you don't forget that name. And I remember her email, Buffy the Tooth Slayer at yahoo.com. I'm sure it's gone now. If not, hit up Buffy and tell her Jay said hi. But when I went to introduce them, he goes, how are you going to introduce us? I said, do you want the technical? Or he goes, I go, technically it's Mr. and Dr. But in your case, if the names aren't changing, he goes, why don't you just do Dr. and Mrs.? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were also a doctor. He goes, well, I'm not.
Yeah, right.
And she looks at me very like sheepishly and just says, how about if we just do like John and Buffy Smith? I'm like, that works for me. Is that cool with you, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I just want to party. Like,
what I was going to say here, and I wasn't disagreeing with you. It's actually very old school here. I'll ask, how would you like to be introduced? Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. I'm like, are you sure you want to be introduced as Mr. and Mrs. John Smith?
Yes. Right.
And I'll even write it down, Mr. and Mrs. John.
Yeah.
and Jane Smith. I'll say it without even asking their permission to say it, and they like it.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll be Brian, and we're different worlds on this, only because of, I guess, because I'm technically married on this. You are not, and this is what I tell brides all the time. The old school days, 50, 60 years ago, you might be introduced somewhere as, oh, have you met Mrs. Brian Red?
Yeah.
Like, that was actually something that could happen.
Very common.
Blanca would be at an affair and they would say, oh, I'd like to introduce you to Mrs. Brian Red or Mrs. Red. That's a very old school thing. I'll tell young brides, you're never going to be known as Mrs. Brian Red.
Unless you're a school teacher.
Right, but you're
even
going to be
then,
known
Or
as...
your neighbors are weird and make their kids talk to you like that, which bothers me. Because when you say Mr. Red, it sounds like Mr. Ed the Talking Horse, and I don't like that.
Right. But I think what I find is they appreciate you giving them the choices like you do. Brides and grooms don't know. When I say, how do you formally want to be introduced? Let me run it down for you. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. John Smith, Mr. and Mrs. John and Jane Smith, John and Jane Smith, or John and Jane. And to be honest, Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Mr. and Mrs. John Smith are the two things you're going to hear the least in your life. So maybe today is the day that you hear them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
Okay,
I love that. I love
I can see
that.
that.
Yeah, do that, Jay. Because when they leave,
Yeah.
you know,
It's better just to say Ryan and Jessica or Jessica and Ryan.
My wedding this week-
always depends.
right. My wedding this weekend is Stephen and Joanne. And Joanne yesterday on the phone made it very clear, I'm not taking Stephen's last name. Great. Why don't we, and without missing a beat, I go, why don't we do this? I'm introducing just the two of you. Let's introduce you as, here they are, ladies and gentlemen. Two choices, the newlyweds or the newest Mr. and Mrs. Stephen and Joanne. And she goes, I like the newest Mr. and Mrs. Stephen and Joanne. Then that's how you'll be introduced. And I won't refer to you as Mr. and Mrs. Smith because you're not Mrs. Smith. So everyone's got an agenda at a wedding, and I think it's important to always feed and respect the differences that go on because families are tough enough. Now you're joining two different families together, and they're, you know, let's face it, a lot of weddings I do, they're meeting for the first time. There's a lot of family dynamics going on. I don't need one side to get upset with the other side. And it's very easy to do. You know, it's the famous, like, I have a list of toasters, and I'm very clear. If your name's not on this list, you're not getting the mic. This isn't like a free-for-all. Because if you were supposed to toast, they would have put you down. I asked them. And I tell them, just like I tell them, no one's going to sing at your wedding, right? No karaoke. Great, I'm bringing only speaking mics. And I only bring speaking mics. I bring an SM58 speak mic and the Audio-Tech 3000 Gen 4 speak mic. If I need singing, I bring the sing mics. They have a different frequency levels on them. I've sold that now 5 times.
It's a lie, but
Yeah, I was going to say.
I've still sold it 5 times.
vocals are vocals.
5 times.
I didn't realize Shure 58
5
not
times.
musical.
Oh my
You
God.
can't sing on a Shure
58,
SM58.
no, sorry.
Bride's mother last year. Oh, my niece
You'll get
is such
shocked.
the bride's cousin. My bride, she's got a song on Spotify, and I'm like, oh, that's great. It'd be great if she could sing it. I'm like, well, I have a tough time with reception. Oh, I'm so sorry. I brought speak mics only. She goes, what? I said, she could sing on it. She'll sound terrible.
What do you say?
I
Different,
go,
different
the
frequency? or something?
changes.
She said,
And
yes.
she literally went to her and said that. And the girl came over to me. She goes, you only have speaking mics? I'm like, yeah, because of the you're a singer. You totally understand. She goes, no, I get it. And even she bought it.
Yeah, well, you know what? That almost makes up for you saying ladies and gentlemen earlier.
I will still say that once in a while.
I know you will.
I try not to.
But I like to pick on you for it because
I try not to, but you know, that's part of the
pick.
that's part of what I love about DJNTV. I can watch a show and learn what are other people saying as they introduce couples. What are other people saying between things when they do toasts? Because you can always expand your knowledge, and having a resource such as Disc Jockey News TV, that's where it all makes sense to come together.
So how much stuff did we miss tonight, John? Did we nail out everything? Or
I was wanting to talk music a little bit about some tips of music on the wedding side, but you guys can hit that tomorrow night. I wanted to get on or talk a little bit about some of the differences that you have been seeing with weddings, and you kind of hit that with the ceremony. You guys hit that a little bit. So there's many topics, and Jay and Brian hit those on Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, DJNTV.com/chill. You bounce out to the chill room, and that's open every night, and generally somewhere from about Eastern time, 9 o'clock Eastern time to 3 in the morning, there's somewhere between 2 and sometimes 20 people that are in the chill room, and it's a
great resource. It's a great place to get away, but it's also a great resource to pick a lot of like really high end people in the industry's brain.
This is a group that to pick a lot of fights. No.
There's a lot of
everyone gets along.
Good spot to chat and learn and such. And when we finish right here, you guys can go out to that DJNTV.com/chill, because tonight Howie's going to be kind of manning the fort, and people will be bouncing over there and kind of talking a little bit about some tips that they would like to share. Some people have mentioned them in the chat room. And now they'll get a chance to do that. So if you guys want to jump in and talk about that, go to DJNTV.com/chill after we're done here. So, Brian, good. Jay, thank you guys for being on tonight. I appreciate having you guys. It was fun to be able to hear you guys working back and forth. So that was a good thing. And
sorry you didn't get to say much.
That's okay.
Yeah. Hours just not enough for us, John. Sorry. By the way, real quick before we end,
here we go.
Yeah. No. When Brian approached me about the whole chill room 2 years ago when we were in Vegas, I remember going back to him after the whole thing was like set up. Oh, it's a chill room, this and that. I remember literally saying to Brian, I'm like, dude, I'll be honest with you. I got no problems talking for 8 straight hours. Like, I'm fine with talking on stage. He goes, no, we're not on stage. I'm like, well, where are we? He goes, no, we're in a room. I go, am I talking the whole time? He goes, you can talk some of the time. I'm like, all right, but if you need me to talk on stage all day, I can do that.
There's no stage.
There's no stage.
I think I pointed out I've done the guitar set.
It's a lounge.
Party. It was just
sit down.
It was a
and relax.
I've done the corporate party guitar center, and you do 10, 30-minute sets throughout the day. Well, that's 5 hours, and I have no issue. Every time they hire me, they're like, so you're going to explain something for 30 minutes, off for 20, 30, off for 20. I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
The chill room reflects that as well. So, come and enjoy.
There you go. So you guys head on there and have a good time, and we will catch you next time. Good night, everybody.